Hi, I'm comedian and poker commentator Joe Stapleton, and you're watching P3 on Rise Above TV.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. You're watching P3, the place where we feature individuals who have tapped into their power, passion, and purpose. I'm your host, Janie Terrazas, and today I'm super thrilled to have Joe Stapleton, comedian and poker commentator, and one of my dear friends. He is giving us his time today and sharing what power, passion, and purpose mean to him. Thank you so much for being with us today, Joe.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's nice to talk to people and not have to pay for it. This is
I met Joe through a mutual friend, and that was years ago. It's been, I think, over 13 years that we've known each other, but we're the kind of friends that we can go long periods of time without speaking. And then suddenly when we hang out, it's like no time lagged, and it's always a good time. So I'm really grateful for our friendship, but as a friend, I'm just so proud of all that you have accomplished. One, as a person, because you've grown and matured a lot, but also to the fact that you've been able to succeed in the world of entertainment, especially in the whole comedy area. So you've been able to bridge so many of your passions, and I'm excited to hear a little bit more about the backstory of I guess the humble beginnings, so to speak. So wherever you want to start, brother.
man, it's so great how loosely we can define the word success. That by the strictest possible interpretation, yes, I am a success in the entertainment industry. By less generous interpretations, not so much. But hey, whatever. I'm. Hey, what is it? I don't know if my power, my passion, or my purpose is that I'm pretty lucky that I get to pay all my bills and haven't had a real job in like 15 years. So
Right?
that's pretty cool. I'm
That
okay
is
with that.
so cool. And I really do think that right now, with the pandemic that hit, it really forced a lot of people to kind of stop and reprioritize and really think about, well, what really brings me joy and what brings me value. And it gave time for us to play and kind of maybe do some introspection and get curious, which is what led you to, I guess, continue to explore and just try new adventures. Like, where did that come from? Because I believe were you born in New York and then you moved to California?
Upstate New York, born in upstate New York to a pretty conservative, somewhat religious family, and really strict with education and doing the right thing. And wasn't interested in, not that I wasn't interested in doing the right thing, but I just wasn't interested in staying where I was born. I wanted to do something bigger. And when I was 13 years old, I had a dream that I was Batman. And I woke up in the morning and I was so sad that A, I wasn't Batman, and B, I was never gonna be Batman. Like, not that's not like a believe in yourself kind of thing. You're
Right.
literally never gonna be Batman. And I sort of in the same moment came to the realization that the only place where Batman lives is in fiction, and in the he lives in that the people. Now, I had only seen Batman the movie, right? So I'm thinking of a movie Batman, and these things exist really only on film. So the closest that I could come to being Batman would be to create Batman or bring Batman to life or some other form of it in my on my own in the fictional world, but in such a way that people would still believe that this Batman could be real. And it was kind of at that moment that I was like, I'm probably going to move to Los Angeles and work in Hollywood in my life. That was like around 13 or 14 years old. And uh, graduated high school when I was 17. I did a little quick path at college. I graduated a little early there at 20. And less than 5 days after my college graduation, I had driven from Boston to Los Angeles, and I was there. That was it. Almost 20 years ago.
And was there any opposition from any family or friends? Because I know sometimes when we have this idea, like, you know what, I'm breaking free from the norm. I'm going to step out of the comfort zone here. And I don't know if you were the first in your family and or your group of friends to do something that bold and brave. Because usually if you are the first, there's people that like try to sprinkle their fear onto you, or project their fear onto you. I mean,
Yeah, weirdly, oddly enough, despite how like strict my parents were and how pragmatic they were like, "Yeah, go ahead, like follow your dreams. You're a smart kid. You can probably figure it out." Um, yeah, it was kind of surprising. And not only did they do that, but they gave me my dad, had a car that he was about to get a new car. They gave me a car to get started. And also, they had, until this moment, kept a secret from me $5,000 that my grandma had left me years prior. And so I got to get started on my trip to Los Angeles with a car and $5,000. And I'm gonna tell you, Janie, at the time, I thought $5,000 was the smallest amount of money anyone had ever had to start anything ever.
are you
Um,
serious? I would have thought that maybe at that time you would have thought, wow, I thought you were going to say the opposite. You were like, this is nothing.
No, yeah, no. This was I thought that I had come from the most humblest beginnings of anyone ever, which is part of the reason why I had a shift in my attitude after a few years in LA, where I realized like, okay, so your parents weren't rich, like your dad worked for the post office and your mom was a teacher, but like that is by far like I thought I was like like the most blue collar kid who ever lived, not knowing about um other poorer white kids and especially not knowing about minorities and like what their fucking lives are like growing up economically. And so I just thought like everyone had at least as good a life as I did. What's everyone bitching about? And eventually had to be like, oh no no no, I was wrong about that. Like my actually I had it like pretty easy.
Wow, that's incredible. I love that you brought that up because it really is like perspective is so relative and subjective,
Yeah.
and it really is a culture shock. I mean, I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, and moved to California, and I ended up being there for 12 years. And I know that first 6 months or a year, it was like a major culture shock in a lot of different ways, but also in a good way. Like, you know what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah.
Because you have this like Southern hospitality here where you're like, hi, how you doing? And you're all, and there in LA, they're like, why are you saying hi to me? Do you know me? And I'm like, what's that all
People just must have thought you were about the cutest thing ever. Like even,
or the weirdest or the fakest, like who knows,
yeah, maybe they could have thought you were doing a bit also, probably.
exactly, like, hey, what are you trying to sell? Anyway, but going back to yeah, there was that transition that you had with the car and the $5,000. What a beautiful gift that you were given. And I just want to say kudos to your parents, man, for like supporting you, because I know a lot of times kids do things and just make decisions in their lives to go down a path that their parents just really don't want for them. And it's so refreshing when a child has the like, all right, go do it, man. We believe in you. You know what I mean? That's
Well,
awesome.
you know what I think it was is that my dad, for my entire conscious life, I remember him being like sick to his stomach to have to go to work.
Oh,
Just every day, just like dreading it, just like so depressed, like literally clinically depressed, over hating his job, but just felt like there was nothing else he could do, and he was making good money, and he had a family to look after, and just the broken sadness, like on a Sunday, Sunday afternoon with work coming up the next day. Um, I think that when I said I want to go do something that I want to do, he was like, "Yeah, man, fucking go for it."
I love
Just
it.
because he didn't want me to be miserable like he was.
Yes,
So
exactly.
yeah, that was of all lots of things I didn't get along with my parents about throughout my life, and um, the older I get, the less I care about the parts that make me mad, and I can focus on the good things like that.
Yeah, that's true. It does. As we age and we mature, we start to see our parents in a different light, especially when we start to grow deeper into understanding what compassion means and things like that and empathy. And even though you're this like burly kind of guy and you're rough around the edges and you're crude and everything, you really have a soft heart. Like, I mean, I don't know. What would you say that the fact that I just said that, what does that make you think and feel?
Well, it's like this, right? Like let's say George R. Martin, right? You know who he is, wrote all the Game of Thrones books, right? He put like a lot of murder in his art, right? Murder and rape and all kinds of terrible things in his art. It doesn't mean he is that person or that he wants to do that things. He created art where that exists. So comedy is this weird thing where people assume that whatever your art is who you are as a person, and for good reason in comedy, right? We're up there in our own names. We're up there. It is an exaggerated version of ourselves. However, I kind of say like, even if someone does something in their comedy act that you don't like, right? That's like not soft-hearted. That's maybe even mean. You're welcome to not like that joke, not laugh at that joke, not even see this comedian perform anymore. But like, it doesn't mean they're a bad person.
Right.
Um, so the whole rough around the edges thing. I'm very lucky that I get away with it, and my line seems to be within most people's sort of safe zones at this point, or just approaching it. Sure, I'm sure it spills over to some other people, but ultimately I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Like, and if it hurts one person's feelings, I would gladly be like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings." I wouldn't
Right.
tell them they're being stupid. I wouldn't tell them they're being too sensitive. I would be like, "Sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings."
Right.
Um, but luckily, I think there's a lot of comedy that doesn't have, if that one little bit, that one little like extra thing we can't do anymore, or we can't do anymore that people say you shouldn't do anymore. I don't care. I don't. It's like no great loss to me.
Right, exactly. It's like you can still enjoy your comedy and still make people laugh without having to have that little extra.
Yeah, it's like, look, if you were gonna say, is this a sex positive podcast, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
If you're just gonna
absolutely.
have a wonderful night with your betrothed, your partner, and you're like anything goes except no butt stuff, you'd be like, cool, this is still a really fun night. Like, it wouldn't, just because I can't do butt stuff doesn't ruin the whole rest of the experience for me.
Yeah, it's not gonna rain on the parade. You
I'll
know what
still
I
like the
mean?
other stuff. There's lots of other stuff. The butt stuff is like only this much stuff.
And it's that's a perfect way to sort of like go into comedy. When were you the class clown? Did you use comedy to help you get through tough times?
But where comedy started for me was to reinvent myself because I didn't have any friends. I didn't have a lot of friends, and I wanted a lot of friends, and I especially wanted to be cool. I wanted to be one of the cool kids, and I couldn't. The cool kids didn't want me. I wanted nothing to do with me. I wasn't athletic. I wasn't. I was kind of smart. I wasn't, because my parents were so strict. I wasn't even allowed to go do the things that they would go do anyway. So on the off chance I would get invited, my parents would be like, "No, you're not going to fucking Switzerland for spring break." That kind of shit. So I really just wanted to be well liked. And one day I was like, I'm going to reinvent myself. I switched schools between eighth grade and high school. So for my freshman year, I was brand new. Nobody who knew who I was. And I was just like, I'm the funny guy now. And I will say this, that even as like the class clown, which is not quite putting it right, but just like, just like the smart aleck in high school, even that took a while to get good at, right? They say it takes like 5 to 7 years to get good at stand up. Well, it took me like the better part of 3 years to get good at my shtick in high school. But eventually, by the end, I had kind of achieved what I set out to do, which was like not particularly the popular kids didn't. I wasn't like in their group, but they liked having me around because I made them laugh. Um, and that's kind of been my life ever since. That's what happened with poker. I wasn't particularly skilled for poker, but I was a guy that was making everybody laugh, and nobody else was really doing it. Um, and then I just managed to stick around, to carve out that sort of role for myself in poker. I've never really had to look back, very luckily.
Yeah, what was the very first like job opportunity you had in the poker world? And please elaborate and let our viewers know the organizations and the tournaments and things that you've been involved with.
Sure, sure. Well, I've been doing poker TV shows now for like 15, no, 12 or 13 years. And I've done them in Europe and in Asia, and poker live streams and all kinds of things all over the world, 3 continents. for, I guess. I don't want to get into that. I really should know these numbers and I don't know
You're
them.
like,
Anyway,
please
it's not important.
don't
It's been all
don't
over the
make
world.
me
It's
don't
been
make me touch on my international
exactly.
resume.
Here's a more fun way of saying it. When I got a new passport in 2019, I was full and I had to get a new one. I had 169 stamps in it. So that just shows you how much traveling I did for a period of time.
Right.
But my first job in poker was I was working in Los Angeles for a TV show called Mad TV. Before you get all excited, I was a production assistant my first year and eventually became production coordinator. I had absolutely nothing to do with the comedy and it really drove me crazy. It was like really torturous to have everything like all these people that are huge stars now in my face every day doing the thing I want to be doing, and I had this such a sense of duty that I didn't allow myself to ever try to schmooze and make that sort of change. I was like, no, you were hired to be a production coordinator. You do not get involved. You do not betray these people. Yada yada.
Wow.
So me and a buddy, we got into poker a little bit, and by into it I mean we watched it on TV for like 3 hours. Um, and he decided he was going to apply to be an intern at Card Player Magazine during the 2005 World Series of Poker. And he got the job. He needed a ride to Vegas to go spend 6 weeks in Vegas. I said, I'll take you to Vegas. I dropped him off. Well, before I left the driveway, his boss went, do you know anyone else who can write? He said, yeah, my buddy in the car over there, he can write. And they're like, okay, he can be an intern for the summer too. So I drove back to Los Angeles, packed my car, and then back to Vegas the next morning. And that was my first. We were little interns. We stood with notebooks watching poker. We would write down what was happening and then run over to a computer. It was like the first time they ever live blogged the World Series of Poker. And me and my buddy, we thought it was really boring, so we were always putting jokes into the live updates and constantly getting in trouble because it's not supposed to be funny.
But that's the funny thing that about that is that that is the thing that ended up becoming your
Yes,
shtick,
correct.
pretty much. And it's not even a shtick; it really is a talent that you developed because you really learned the game. You really got into the ins and outs of it, and it's like at each job you had, even when you were at Mad TV, you were around so much talent, and it was frustrating that you didn't like you said, maybe um, assert yourself a little bit more, whatever. But at the same time, you were also around some people that were, gosh, like really funny, and so I would.
Certainly inspirational, many of them. As far as like, um, for example, part of the reason why I've been chasing fame is because there were two cast members at Mad TV who were so unbelievably nice to like the little people that I was like, I want to be famous just so I can brighten someone's day the same way they are,
Hmm,
just by I actually just tweeted this yesterday because Keegan Michael Key is hosting Saturday Night Live. He just tweeted about it. Keegan was one of those people. The last time I saw Keegan, it was a movie premiere on Hollywood Boulevard, and I just happened to be walking by, so I stopped to watch it. But I see Keegan, I go, Keegan. He looks at me on the red carpet. He jumps over the rail, goes through a whole crowd of people to come over and give me a hug, ask me how my brother's doing, ask me how my parents are doing. We caught up for a second. It was like that kind of thing made my day, right? Like just made me feel like the coolest person in the world. Even telling that story, I feel fucking cool as shit.
yeah.
I want to be at Keegan's level so I can do that for other people. So I can
Amen.
make their day just by saying, "What's up? How's it going? Good to see you." I would like to bring that amount of joy to more people's lives. And I'll say this, poker is really, really cool, and the fans are amazing. And some of them do get like that when I'm around them. And I love that. And that's really, really cool. And yes, does it feed my ego? Absolutely. That's fine. It's okay to like both parts of it, is my whole
Yes.
point. It's okay to enjoy the things I do that make me feel good and make other people feel good. I'm okay with that. Like that, that's a price I'm willing to pay.
Yeah, and I feel like that brings you a lot of peace too as a person. It's like you really know who you are, you really understand why you're in it and why you do it, and you've been able to disconnect from what other people think. And I know that can be really debilitating for us. And it's not to say that you're completely like have this like iron wall to it altogether, or maybe you do, I don't know. You can elaborate and let me know how you sort of manage that if it's ever even a thing?
Yeah, obviously I do care what people think, but the key is for me is to not let it change what I'm doing. That it's okay to care. It's okay to like be hurt. People always say to me like, "Oh yeah, yeah, like don't engage them or just ignore it." Nobody knows what it's like until it's happening to you. And I will admit, I've met a few people that can just ignore it. Most people are only pretending to ignore it. And
Yeah.
so I don't ignore it. I make my feelings very well known about how I'm feeling about this particular comment or this particular situation. And then I get on with my day. And I don't let it change what I'm doing in the future. But in that moment, for those few seconds, or if I can dunk on a troll, which is something I really like doing, like if you come at me, you come at me with some mean shit. This is a warning to all of you. You come at me with some mean shit on the internet, your
Yeah.
grammar better be fucking perfect, because if not, I will get you. I will
That's how
get
you
you.
slay them.
I will get you on grammar. I will get if there is anything remotely make funnable about your profile, I will dig for weeks until I find the most embarrassing post you've ever done, and you're gonna have to answer for that if you come at me on the internet.
That's hilarious. And I
Sorry.
love, no, don't even be sorry. And I just want to say thank you for being one of those people that really gets it. That if you're going to have people admire you for your craft or feel inspired by you, then you really wanted to be able to give back. There's a synergistic.
You
Uh,
have a responsibility, I think, in some ways. Now, if someone didn't agree with me, that's okay. Like when people get too grabby or demanding of photos or autographs and that they do with really famous people, and they're like, "I don't owe you anything." They're absolutely right.
yeah,
They don't owe you anything.
yeah. It's like
Um,
go ahead.
I happen to think that I do. Okay, and there's
Mm,
a line. I don't know where that line is.
okay.
People come close to crossing it sometimes, and I am pretty good at just sidestepping those situations. But for the most part, I do feel like I owe it to them. Is that, if part of what makes people tune in to watch whatever it is I'm doing, if part of it is that I seem accessible, then wouldn't it be nice if I'm also accessible? I don't have to be, but I think it's nice. I think it's a nice thing to do. It's a nice way to give back. I try to give back as much as I can.
Yes.
Um, and I can see why. And I'm at a perfect level of fame that I can do that I can keep up with it.
Yes.
Is it tiring sometimes? Absolutely, but um, I can't even imagine what actual famous people go through. I just like a couple hundred people that know who I am, and I'm
Right.
like, yeah, yeah, sure, I'll sing happy birthday to your girlfriend, no problem. What's the deadline on this?
Exactly. I love it. And I think that's the part that really makes getting into a space where you're more financially stable and you have a platform where you can really reach people, and you use it with responsibility, like you use it responsibly. And I do
Yeah,
feel that you do that. And I also want to touch on the fact that you mentioned expression, that when something bothers you express it in some way, and you happen to be a comedian and have a microphone, and you know what I mean, and so that's your self-expression. But for us to be able to get it out and honor it, and then being able to just let it flow and let it
yeah,
go, is, I think, also helps a lot with our health, our wellness levels. It's like there's so much chaos and so much heaviness and everything. It's like, how do we bring levity to brevity, and how do we allow ourselves the room to feel what we're feeling but not stay stuck in it? So I really
yeah.
love that you freaking mentioned that,
Yeah,
bro.
and you know what I would say too is that like I consider myself and all the things I do like aren't really choices, right? Like I have the ability to do that. I have the ability to express myself and to most of the time forget about it 5 minutes later. Not everyone has that ability.
Right.
My anxiety is different from your anxiety is different, different from the overreactions that we have. Everyone's like, has their triggers,
Yeah.
and they come in different places for different people. So all I would say is not everyone's capable of that, but you have to try. If you
Yeah.
don't try, you'll never know. If you try and it doesn't work for you, and you're like, I just can't deal with it, like that mean comment I read on the internet stays with me for weeks, that's entirely possible. But if you try, express your extreme anger in that given moment, and then sometimes just for me, letting go of it in that moment, by letting it rip, by like just really feeling as angry as I want to feel and not burying it deep down and not just ignoring it, that works for me. And I hope it works for other people.
Yeah, and there's science behind why that is actually really powerful and
Oh,
really
good.
beneficial for us. So I won't get into it because I'll geek out on it, but you're practicing mindfulness and I freaking love it. Um, there's a whole thing called tapping, emotional freedom technique, where you basically acknowledge what it is that you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what you're feeling in your body, because there's kind of there's like a trifecta thing that's going on. And just by doing that, it already starts to set the nervous system from fight or flight into rest and digest. And then if you can kind of wrap it, and there's
What
these,
about attack and snack?
dude, don't even go there with my attack and stack because I still have this feeling that someone's going to come with that. Are you saying that because you remember my idea from a
I
long time
remember
ago?
attack and snack. I think of it every time I think of you. I
Oh,
anytime your name pops up on my phone, sometimes for no reason in the middle of the day, I'll remember that weird house sitting job I had. I'm like, you came to my house and you like pitch me attack and snack. I still think it's a great idea.
I know, and you know what's crazy is I don't know if you know this or not, but I ended up getting a meeting with the producers that did the Mad TV show. I can't remember their names off the top of my
David
head.
Salzman, yeah, the
There you
Salzmans.
go. And they gave me a meeting, and then they ended up signing. They were like, "This is the one of the greatest ideas that we get hundreds of ideas." But that's just another one of those stories that you hear all the time in Los Angeles, where I thought that was going to be my big break, but
Every
right,
time it seems like this is it, and then nope.
this is it. And it's like they were like, this is a golden age you're sitting on. And I was like, oh shit, they were telling me everything I wanted to hear. And so I signed like I think a 18-month agreement with them that they had 18 months to do something with it. But then, they ended up not doing anything. And I'm one of those people that's not going to be pressing.
Of
So
course, it was
anyway,
just a
but
waste of 18 months. Yeah.
yeah, so funny. So where does Joe Stapleton really get his power from? And what would you like to say about purpose? Those two things right there, because I think they can be misconstrued in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It's the what is it? I think there's even a book about it, like the power of not giving a damn. I think there's like actually a book about that. Very very similar title to that. Um, is just the power comes in knowing who I am and what I stand for and um being very secure with that. And it's difficult for other people to make me feel insecure about most things because I like who I am and I'm the kind of person that I would want to spend time with. So I think a lot of the power comes from there, which obviously ties into purpose in a lot of ways. But it's just the my purpose is to make people happy. I just really like doing it. It makes me happy. Again, I don't think there's a problem, right? There's some people out there like you're not allowed to do things for others. If it makes you happy, then you're doing it for you. I'm like, I can do it for both. I can do it for both of us, right? I'm still doing something for someone else, even if I'm benefiting from it. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. We got to get past that everything we do has to be totally selfless. It doesn't. It's okay to do nice things for yourself. So my purpose is I'd love making people happy. I love making people laugh, and I love the fact that I can have that can literally be a job. Who gets to do that as their job? I do. That's a pretty incredible purpose.
Absolutely. And it seems like you created a life and that some people would say, wow, like he really manifested this. And I don't even know if you practice or know anything about law of attraction and manifestation and sort of the power of visualization and belief and intention and all this stuff. But it seems like you inadvertently had visions, had these goals. It was like nothing was going to get in the way of it. You had to go the green light from the people that you cared about, and then you just made shit happen. Like,
Yeah, I mean that's well, I don't like. I have a really hard time. Look, if I was going to have manifested a life like this, is pretty close to what it is, right? So I am not the kind of person that specifically thinks manifestation alone is enough. but
Absolutely.
unfortunately, my life is a bad argument against it. Like it is a strong argument in favor of it. Except for that, what I will say is that again, I want to reiterate. I
Okay.
want to reiterate most of what, in my opinion, a big part, and I wouldn't say most of, a big part of what got me here is blind dumb luck. It's to the parents I was born to the to to certain things that went my way when they could have not gone my way, health, that sort of stuff. Um, I think that people too often, when they are successful, want to believe that they are the sole architect of their own success, and that because I am successful, that means every decision I made was the correct one. I think that that's complete horseshit, and there are things I did that probably helped me to achieve what I have achieved, which, by the way, again, is like modest, right? It's not
Sure.
uh, to achieve what I have achieved. Uh, and there are things I did that probably hindered me getting here, but I wouldn't ever be like, here's how I did it. If you do what I did, you will be successful, because I think that that's a bunch of nonsense. There's a lot of luck and lucky breaks that came my way,
Yes.
along the way.
Yeah, I think it's almost like I think opportunities are usually are present all the time, but if we don't have the awareness and the openness to for the antenna, so to speak, to like pick up on it, and then when it does present itself, what do you do in that moment? Do you say yes? Do you say no? Do you become fearful? Do you lean into it? You know what I mean? And so you're absolutely right. We're gonna make mistakes. Would you change any of it?
No, no, no. Wait, hold on. There's one thing I would change.
Okay.
I would have been a little bit more of a self promoter, assertive at a younger age, and I would have worked harder. Three things. Wow, here we go. We got three things we would change.
Woo!
One is that when I first moved to LA, I was embarrassed to admit that I also wanted to be in front of the camera. I was held back. I did care what other people thought. I thought it was kind of a dumb thing to want to do. Everyone wanted to be an actor, and they got made fun of for it, and I didn't want to get made fun of. So I was just gonna be a writer, because writing was noble, at least, right? Writing is like a way more noble uh, pursuit as opposed to acting, which is a bunch of fame hounds and whatever. And I was embarrassed, and so I didn't admit that. And it took me a long time of not even admitting it to myself. We're talking. I moved to LA in 2002. Until 2009, I got a job in front of the camera without even really trying. So imagine if 7 years before that I had been trying, maybe things would have gone a little bit differently. So that's one. Two is that I would have worked harder. So when I just wanted to be a writer, I wasn't even really writing anything. I was just kind of saying I was a writer. To this day, I've never finished a screenplay. I've never finished a pilot. So I would I'd have a better work ethic for after hours for chasing the candle at both ends, because I didn't do that. I worked a really cool, hard job, and then I partied, and then I went and worked a really cool, hard job. Um, and the third thing is, after I had worked harder and I had scripts and sketches and different things to show people, I would be more self-assertive, and ask people, hey, would you mind reading this? Hey, would you mind if I sat in on this session? What? Hey, and just kind of like hit people up a little bit more, because what I did was zero. So I need to. Those are the things I would change. Thank you for that question. Sorry, I said none at first. It turns out
That's
that was a
okay
lie.
though. I'm glad that it just kind of ended up
But
coming through.
but my point is, though, that I would only do those things to be better for myself, and not that I think that where I'm at because I'm unhappy where I'm at. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I don't need to change the future, but I would have liked to actually like put more of an effort in the past.
And I appreciate you being open about mentioning that fear. It's like, and why you had the fear of being on camera. It's that feeling judged for wanting to, hey, look at me. But some people are just, you were born to be heard and to be seen.
Yeah.
And the right opportunities presented itself so that you get thrown into the fire, so that you would just flex the muscle. When you did move from New York to California, did you have an idea of what it was that you were kind of going to aim for, or it was just kind of an open canvas, and then once you landed, it took, you started to realize, oh, it's going to be this and this that I'm going to go after?
You know, I think that what I thought I was gonna do was move to LA, write a sitcom pilot, a sitcom spec, right? Right. Whatever. The way it used to work back then was that you would take an episode of TV that's on the air and write your own episode, right? So,
Mhm.
the Drew Carey show was something that I had moved to LA with a spec for the Drew Carey show, and I had one for Everybody Loves Raymond, and I thought that people were going to read these. They were going to go, "Hey, you're really funny. Would you like to work on, Everybody Loves Raymond as a writer's assistant?" And I was going to say yes, and I was just going to rise the ranks the way that, and that's how it went for a lot of people, right? Not that simple, obviously, but that's kind of what the path was right up until I got there. Unfortunately, I got there right at the peak of reality TV, and there were almost no sitcoms on the air anywhere. Nobody cared about sitcoms. Now sitcoms have since made a comeback again.
Yeah.
But and so it was not only that, but I wasn't holding up my end of the bargain. I wasn't writing more sitcom specs. I didn't do any of that stuff. So I don't really know what I thought was gonna fucking happen because I wasn't actually writing anything. So
And it's funny because earlier, I don't know if you still feel that way when you were kind of going through your list, and some of the goals that you had set for yourself that you haven't accomplished as of yet. Because I do think that at some point you will be able to find the time and devote time, and something will, you will end up completing that goal as far as writing a script, a screenplay, or something. But you are a writer, because comedians, I mean, you're writing your material, and you're doing all these sketches and skits and stuff for the poker programs that you're working for. So do you feel comfortable calling yourself a writer?
I mean, I definitely write. I just wouldn't lead with that because of the connotations of it. That's all.
Okay, that
Like
makes a lot of sense.
I don't disagree with you.
Gotcha.
Writing is one of the things that I do. I just couldn't be like, "Oh, hi, I'm Joe Stapleton, writer." It's
Right.
just
Yeah.
not. It's
All
not.
right. Well, look,
Yeah.
I don't know what today's date is. Wait, oh my God, may the fourth be with you.
Hey, all right.
Hey, your
Yes.
episode's going up on the 5th tomorrow. But yeah, maybe you set a goal for yourself within 24 months. Joe Stapleton will have some sort of
I've
six.
got one. I'm actually currently writing a comic book with a legit comic book company, so like it's going to be finished. So yeah, this is I'm so in I don't know how many months, probably in 6 months time. It definitely in a year there'll be like a comic book that you can buy and hold in your hands with my name on it
Woo! My
as
God,
one of
that's
the
so
writers. Yeah,
awesome. That is
yeah.
so cool. And you know what? It comes full circle like a Seinfeld episode. Speaking of sitcoms, it's all tying up together here. We started with you believing you were Batman. And what's so cool about Batman, of all the superheroes, is he really is just like a regular guy,
Who's
and
really rich?
who's really rich, has a lot of cool ass gadgets. And so all of us, I believe, are like superheroes with amnesia. We kind of have to wake up to that. I know one of the things that we touched on earlier is really encouraging people to, do random acts of kindness. And I know that's something that really brings you a lot of pleasure. And you have done random acts of kindness that people, it's like stuff Batman would do, dude. That's the
Yeah.
kind of stuff you do. So anything that you would like to touch on around that, or anything else that you would like to share with the viewers?
Sure, absolutely. I don't want to share my own examples because I think part of my Catholic upbringing is, I try not to make a big deal about those things unless I think it's going to inspire others to do it. But I think what Janie said is easy enough to interpret without specific examples. What I like to do is anytime that I can do nice for someone else and it's not going to inconvenience me at all or in any way, or like if it's $5 extra on my credit card bill that I'm not going to notice. And look, I'm in a position for some people that is something you're going to notice on your credit card bill. And so for if that's the case, we find other nice things we can do. But anytime I can do something nice for someone that doesn't impede my life at all, I try to do it. Um, it's just one of those things where, hey, this is literally nothing to me, and this is going to make someone else's day somewhat brighter. Yes, let's do it. And by the way, people, I'm not talking about unwanted compliments towards women in the workplace. All right. I'm not talking about stuff like that. I'm not talking about being a creep. All right. There's a fine line. Don't be a creep about it. You just do something nice for somebody. Generally, for a stranger, is a little bit easier too, because then you just do the thing and you get out, and then you walk down the street thinking about how happy that just made you feel to make somebody else probably have a slightly better day.
Yes, so awesome, because you touched on that paradoxical perspective. It could be both. And people always think it has to be one or the other, and really is both. And you also had mentioned earlier, you were traveling all over the world, and sometimes you can have a really hectic schedule. And what are your like non-negotiables? Do you have one or two things that you do that are like your self-care practice that you would consider self-care practices?
Uh, Self-care practices. Well, one is that I don't seek out criticism. We talked about responding emotionally to things you read about yourself online. I, as a rule, don't seek it out. I don't Google myself. I don't read my Wikipedia page. I don't look at the comments on the YouTube videos that I'm in. Occasionally, someone will tag me in something. Someone will copy and paste something to me. Someone will send me a direct message. Those things I see. But for the most part, I don't need to know what's out there. I don't need, like, that's one bit of self care uh, for me. The other is there's a couple of things. One is that walks
Yes.
is a big one. Just walks. Like, exercise really sucks. Like, I'm the first to admit it. Like, I do it because I have to. It's like one of the only things in my life that like I would cut out. Like, it's the like what's the number one thing that makes you unhappy in your life? It's having to exercise. Um, but walking is easy and pleasant and delightful and gets you to think outside of your world for a minute or two,
Yeah.
which is tough to do. So I think that, and also is the health benefits of just getting the blood flowing and moving your legs at the bare minimum will keep you from being a complete, pile of goo.
Right. Yeah. It's that being sedentary. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
encourage people to move their body for at least 5 minutes a day. And I love going outside and just getting fresh air and stuff. So I love those right there. Thank you so much,
Sure.
Joe, for sharing your time and sharing your story. Let people know, how they can contact you and get in touch with you on social media. And if you have a website or anything like that you'd like to direct them to.
I have been Joe Stapleton. You can find me on Twitter at Stapes, Facebook at InstaStapes. Don't hit me up. Wait, no. Instagram is at InstaStapes. Don't hit me up on Facebook. It's a cesspool. Let's just stay friends and not do the whole Facebook thing. And hopefully you'll never see me on Tinder again. Fingers crossed.
I really enjoyed kicking it with you. I'm looking forward to going back to California and actually getting to see you in person. Congratulations. I know you just bought a house. When you buy a house or any kind of property in California, you're doing all right, like the Jeffersons. So I just want to say, way to go.
Thank
I'm
you.
really proud of you. Yes.
Thank you, Janie. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you everyone for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. Your likes, shares, and follows are greatly appreciated because they help spread the love. Subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channel for more mindful content. Tune in next week for another episode of P3, when you'll meet another individual who's tapped into their power, passion, and purpose. Till next time, peace be in us.